So this is basically a Korean shoegaze album. This is sort of like a bedroom produced. I believe it's just one dude just like hanging out, you know. And this is some pretty heavy shoegaze, sort of somewhere in the line of like Loveliescrushing or astrobrite, but definitely a different vibe from both of those bands.
I was really impressed by that because I can tell this guy's not using a drum machine unless he's really fooling me, and that's pretty hard to be able to drum well.
Yeah, no, it sounded like some pretty authentic drums to me.
Yeah, and I know I want to talk about this later too, but he wasn't the most impressed with or the most proud of his vocals. But I thought even with that being this one of the weakest parts, he still did a pretty fantastic job, delivering some decent vocal lines.
Yeah, I mean the vocals as they are, they sounded pretty satisfying, I would say.
Yeah. And another thing that I initially was like pretty blown away by is this album, I would say, definitely has a very thunderous sound. And
definitely, yeah.
This is a tag a lot of people try and attach to their music, but there's, I don't know, most of the time it's not they're not worth the shit, but this was I really felt like there's just like a storm of
a physical presence.
Yeah, that it sounds
very
loud.
Very visceral.
Yeah, definitely with like a lot of layers. And part of that was the production,
incredible production.
I would say so it's not typical production. It's kind of unbalanced, but it's cool cuz
it's pretty dynamic.
Yeah, it adds to dynamics with it being some parts of it being like really loud, and other parts it's unconventional in that like a lot of producers would try and balance everything out, but they're just having fun just making it sound as punchy and actually thunderous, but at times I did feel like it was kind of sloppy, especially when played over like a nicer sound system. But I found like on my phone it sounded fantastic. So am I going to take points away for that? I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me the production was really well done for, I mean, at this point in time there have been many a bedroom producer, Not to say that it's still just knowing that this is just some dude just hanging out probably in some Korean dorm room somewhere, and just like the fact that they are capable of producing an album that sounds like this, that is an incredible feat.
Yeah, that I'd love to see those sessions, because I really wonder how he got like the guitars to ring out like that, and they sound so loud. It sounds like it was recorded in like a rehearsal space or something, but chances are it wasn't, and this guy's just smart. Especially the drums. I don't know. Maybe he did it while people are at work or something, but it's very impressive that one man did all this.
Yeah.
And shows the determination.
Were there any tracks that stood out to you, or any like sort of sound bites that you found particularly interesting? Or, I mean, because the first set of tracks, I feel like, in my experience, had a bit of a different take than the rest of the album. Because, like, okay, so the first, like, one of the tracks that stood out to me the most was the fourth track, which was known as White Ceiling. And I believe it starts off with some like vocal sample, and I believe it's Welcome to the NHK, which is an anime, because in the bio or whatever, the description of this album, they had mentioned that they had referenced like some anime and stuff. They talked about like Welcome to the NHK, Good Night, Evangelion, and Good Night Poon Poon, which is a manga. So I don't know exactly in what way they are like saying that they referenced these properties, but I'm pretty sure that I heard a vocal. I'm pretty sure I heard like the main character of Welcome to the NHK in the intro to the 4th track, White Ceiling. Regardless, though, whether or not that was the case, this one sort of starts off with like an alarm clock, and it's cool because this song, you know, it starts with this alarm clock, and then it sends you into like this heavy trance of sort of shoegazy guitar with all sorts of bleeps and bloops and in hazy vocals, right? And it takes you into this like dream, and by the end of it, the alarm clock rings once again. And I think this is really cool because to me that implies that the fact that this is called White Ceiling, it's like they're sitting in their bed and they're just like laying up at the sky, and they're just like daydreaming. And then, you know, like the ring at the end signifies that they have now, like that's the reality check, right? It's like, no, this is not actually happening to you. And so that's sort of signaling them back to reality. And then the next song is the title track, To See the Next Part of the Dream, which is cool because the description of this album, the way that the artist sort of described this work was that, here's a quote, "This album can be said to be the answer to my dream." And what they had stated before that was that they had memories of like being, I guess they were like following some Korean guitarist or something pretty heavily, and they said that they had like these phased out memories of having been like on tour or something, like as a guitarist and all this stuff, but none of it actually happened. Okay, I'm trying not... I don't want to paraphrase this too much, because you should just read the fucking description of the album, but, like...
Yeah, it's a really interesting description, and maybe it's definitely part of why people like this album so much, because it's really hard to separate the album...
I just spilled beer.
Oh, boy.
No, it's okay.
It's really hard to separate this album and the shy demeanor of its creator. On Bandcamp, he writes about being a nerd and being not very confident with his voice. He also writes about being an adult with a childlike heart.
Yeah.
It's hard not to root for him after hearing that. I mean,
I want to say, like, I hope this kid goes far, because this is some pretty good shit right here.
Yeah, and
this is the dream. This is him. This album is him making his dream reality.
Yeah.
And it feels really cool. When I realized that, I was like, "Whoa, that's kind of cool."
Yeah, and if he ever listens to it, I mean, he is a rock star, and I feel like, dude, your voice is pretty decent, you know, as far as rock stars go. You don't need to be fantastic, but he delivered a great album.
Delivered some great guitar work.
Yeah. And people across the world, you know, thousands and thousands of people are listening to this. So that's like such a wonderful thing. You know, it's so cool it really makes you root for this guy.
Yeah, definitely.
As far as like a, you know, somewhat relatable story, he's very personable, you know, in his description. It's really curious. And I feel like, in a sense, he kind of... I would almost label him like an outsider artist. And I know a lot of people are offended by that term, but personally I don't feel like it's a negative thing. outsider artists are celebrated for the childlike honesty in their music, and the way this guy presents himself, and the way this music, the way that the emotions this music is capturing, and what he's trying to work off of, definitely have that childlike wonder and essence to it. Maybe it ties into like how a lot of this music is kind of anime inspired, like mixed with shoegaze.
I fucking love anime and shoegaze.
But he takes that. Both of those have a sense of wonder to them. Definitely anime, since it's kind of a fantasy, and he takes that, and with really upbeat music that's dreamlike, and has a lot of power chords. Or
the guitar is really emotional.
Yeah, definitely. The guitar writing was really great and had a lot of builds, and definitely brought to mind like a lot of the anime music I like a lot, like the FLCL music, which was composed by the Pillows, or that one Naruto opening.
Dude, I love Naruto.
I actually just know the band, the Japanese Kung Fu Nation.
Asian Kung Fu
Nation, yes, generation.
Asian Kung Fu generation.
Yeah, but
I want to say it's interesting.
Probably gonna get some more. We're gonna get some more angry commenters. Oh, I messed up another name and offended people of a culture.
I find it interesting that you find that this actually like strikes a semblance of resonance of anime.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't really feel that a lot at first. I can tell that this is a person who would like anime. Like, it makes sense to me that, oh yeah, this dude likes anime. But to me, it doesn't seem like super influenced by... I don't know, it's just...
Well,
it definitely has like that uplifting nature. And there's a lot of samples, like there's just like train sounds and bird sounds, and those
especially
things
early
appear,
on.
Those things appear in anime.
Well, I mean, you could compare it to like power pop or like I don't know, dream pop or something. But I feel like the way the guitar lines like build like is just really reminiscent of like an anime opening. And I know that this guy is definitely inspired by anime. It's not just because he's an Asian guy that I'm just going out of my way to beat the nail on the head that this sounds like anime music. But I'd love it if people in the comments were angry about that too. That's totally fine. You can fight that battle in the comment section. But it's the power chords, and it's really cool to see that added to shoegaze. I mean, I wish there was like more swirly parts and ambient parts, but what he does with samples is really cool, and definitely makes up for that.
Yeah, I think like for track to track, the guitar is pretty consistently, it's that heavy, deep shoegazy sound, which is really good. And I think each track has something interesting for like, even on a first listen, you're gonna be intrigued. Like, this album has the right to be an hour long, whereas I feel like most albums that are an hour long do not have the fucking right to be an hour long, but this one earns it. And there's definitely like on a first listen, you'll be intrigued, but you'll also have more to keep coming back to. There's depth here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There is something to be taken out of each track.
Yeah, I mean...
Especially, you know, like going along with the narrative of what is in the bio of this album.
I mean, when I first listened to it, I did wish like there was more variation with what he's doing with guitar, but the early tracks have have a decent amount of variation, and
I think the later half is where you start to get more of like jam tracks. Like,
yeah, there is some jam tracks, but I like the second to last track a lot. That one's Chicken is just really heavy. That was cool. I definitely I vibe with that one.
Yeah, yeah, yup. No, all right, so I want to get back to what I was saying about track 4, White Ceiling, because right after that, it has the follow-up here is really good on the title track, because they have this, like, I would say this is one of the parts of this album where the guitar, at least in the intro of track 5, is pretty different from the rest of the record, because it's like you have this sort of folky, what I assume is an acoustic guitar. It almost, with the effects that are put on it, it almost sounds like a harp, which is kind of interesting. It has a pretty cool tone to it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so you have this kind of intro with like the folk thing, and then it just like explodes into a fucking fireworks show of like pop rocks. Mm-hmm. Noise pop rocks. Noise pop, as in Stereolab, Yola Tango. And this is where our protagonist, Korean bedroom boy, he is flying to the crisp monotone blue sky that is visible on the album art. Perhaps he is shot from the cannon that is the fucking thing, the chimney or whatever that is, you know, maybe that's where he flies out of, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, there's some really good stuff on that track. And then I feel like the rest of the album from this point onward is a lot of that. You get a lot of kind of like noise pop rocks jams, just like super visceral guitar, almost like black metal-y, kind of like on the just in the sense that like it's really resonant, you know? Like it like strikes a physical chord in my body when I hear this guitar. And I feel that a lot on track 6, Age of Fluctuation, where it's just this track again is just an explosion of expression, and it's fucking cool.
So anyway, we had agreed that to wrap it up, we would reflect on this last part of the description that we found pretty interesting. So he says, I can't give you a sweet word of consolidation. I can't say it's going to be okay someday. I just hope there will be more active losers like me in the world. And I love that. I love...
Very muy besado.
Yeah, I love when people who are different just create things. It's a really beautiful thing. And if you're a nerd, if you're creative, just don't be like the grandpa in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and just sit in bed all day and pretend like you're disabled. That motherfucker could walk the whole time. Why is he in the bed? He could walk, and he wasn't sick. He's just sitting in the bed wasting away. Don't be like that. Don't be like that. Collect your neat bucks and then start a business. Make a video game. Life's too short.
Yeah.
Just make something awesome like this. People found it. People listen to it. People love it.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You should go listen to it if you haven't already.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we are just about done here.
Yeah.
If you're a loser, kill yourself. All right. Goodbye.